Hey guys, today is another Toolbox, Stunt rigging Toolbox talk. I'm in the shop, and I'm fucking getting healthy finally again, and busy hooking up the computer to my new dyno. It took forever, but I had to modify the dyno a little bit, and now it's all set. The PC will be here tomorrow. So it's all set up. I machined a few parts, and now I have one that can sample a really super fast rate. It'll graph it all. And it's remote so that it doesn't keep blowing the dyno apart from the shock factor when things break. But I was also, the phone's been ringing a lot this week, and I've been getting texts from people the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to just take a moment. This is going to be an op-ed piece, opinion time. Rigging and assumption of liability and assumption of risk, again, because it seems to be a point that a lot of people miss. There's been a lot of butthurt people texting and trying to debate the issue of the whole harness inspection thing. And it's one particular manufacturer who's the oldest, best, most respected harness manufacturer. The manufacturer states it should be inspected this often. It should be inspected every time you put it on, and it should be retired in a certain period of time. Pretty straightforward for the manufacturer. And yet, especially in one country in particular, it seems like everybody knows better. They all want to be involved as inspectors of harnesses. They all want to be involved in this. And I have to wonder what creates it. Is it just a feeling of being left out that you're so butthurt? Or what is it? Because here's the reality. In this country, primarily, nobody inspects their harnesses. They're usually always out of date. Coordinators carry 30, 40, 50 harnesses that are on wardrobe racks that are fucking so far out of date they should be burned, all of them. And yet, you work for these coordinators, and if you fly someone in these harnesses, you put yourself at risk because you show no due diligence. You're not going by the rules. So you've put a big bullseye on your head. And to say, I want to be able to inspect harnesses, well, are you going to tell them they need to throw all this shit away? Are you going to tell them that the manufacturer's directions are X, Y, Z, and that means that none of these can be used? No, you aren't. You're going to fly people in these. And this is one of my pet peeves because, not enough people die doing this. I mean, bad rigging, not enough people die, period. I know it sounds horrible, but the reality is there isn't a big penalty for fucking this up because the odds are usually such that you get away with it. There's nothing that outlandish or nothing that stressful that takes everything just to that point where it can fail. I've seen failed lines. I've seen failed malleons, which we've had an incident of that. We've seen failed a lot of things, and they get swept under the carpet. But the reality is, do you want to put yourself in the middle of all of this, liability-wise? So you work for somebody who's got all these harnesses, and you fly somebody in a shit harness. It hasn't been inspected, it's out of date. So according to the manufacturer, it's toast. But yet you want to be able to inspect it. So what? You can say, I know more than the manufacturer. I think it's fine, which puts a big bullseye on your head. It means you are now super liable. Not just the coordinator who carries all these things to look good or collects them over the years, and puts themselves at risk, but you put yourself directly at risk because now you have interjected yourself into the middle of this willingly or by omission. By omission, you just go ahead with the program and fly people and shit. Or willingly, you say, I'm a harness inspector and I think it's fine. Well, that's nice. Based on what criteria? Based on what? Because ultimately you need to enforce the manufacturer's standards unless, of course, you can prove better. Okay, so Petzl does destructive testing. DMM does destructive testing. All of these hard and soft good manufacturers do destructive testing, a huge amount of it, which contributes to the cost of all of these items. Sutra does a huge amount of destructive testing. I have harnesses here I test, and I let Todd know what's going on. I have my new computer tester here so I can be much more exact in what I do. But the fact is, if you are a rigger and you interject yourself willingly into the middle of this, then you are hanging a bullseye on yourself. So you better be damn well certain beyond a doubt that it is what you say it is, okay? So I don't understand, and I'm having a really hard time with all of this crosstalk and chatter and bullshit going on with people about what the big deal is. Number one, most of them are in a country where nobody gives a fuck anyway, and nobody tests their shit anyway. So what's it matter? In the States, people pay attention to these things. Here in Europe, most of the productions that I test harnesses for or certify harnesses for pay attention to this thing. Every period of time that needs to be tested or checked, they send it to me, I go through it. Nobody argues. And the pittance that it costs for the time it means I've put myself at risk. Okay, I've put myself out there by saying it's good. Okay, so that means if shit hits the fan, whether it's the harness failing or anything else, like H&S and all these people, when shit goes down, they don't just go by what was the accident. They start looking at everything in the system and everything that's going along. Oh, was that harness in date? What about this rope? What about this piece here? What about that piece there? So it makes no sense to me these people want to get involved in this unless they're really that good at what they do and they really think that they know better than the manufacturer. So I find it really difficult right now from all this crosstalk and chatter that I'm hearing, and all these people want to do this when it makes no sense. Just by working for people who don't follow the rules, you put yourself in the crosshairs. Okay? If the coordinator doesn't give a fuck with harness dates and with harness inspection, then you know what? You're liable for flying them anyway in that because you're supposed to be the rigger and you're supposed to know better. So you've already screwed yourself. So now do you want to take one step farther and say, I certify that this harness is up to standards, even though it's out of date, it hasn't been inspected, it's dated. Oh, sure, why not? Let's just take the rap for all this bad stuff. And what I'm saying is that if people died because of this, then nobody would want to be jumping, going, pick me, pick me, pick me. I want to do this because you are liable. Okay, when it goes to court, you're the one that's going to get fucked. Okay, you're the one on the stand that's going to get just reamed by all the attorneys and everyone else. But not enough of this results in deadly injury where it goes to court and people have to sit and answer for it. It either gets swept under the rug, ignored. A lot of things take place in our industry. Unlike the live performance industry, say Cirque du Soleil, or the Ringling Circus with the Hair Act that failed and Carabiners Tri-Loaded. All these various things are things in recent history that have taken place. And when it gets to court, it gets really fucking ugly, okay? So you need to be able to say that you use this according to the standards, this according to standards. If you circumvented a standard, you need to be able to prove why it's still safe. Meaning you had damn well better have a lot of test info on using that piece or that rope or that thing that way. And in fact, we use a lot of tech, a lot of Samson tech. And one of the things they say in their rope and rope use and rope inspection is you shouldn't be dynamic loading this stuff. And I have to laugh because that's pretty much all we do. Think of it, ratchets, drops, all of this is dynamic loading. So you need to inspect this very often. You need to really be one with your equipment and understand what you're looking for because the manufacturers said not to do it. They say this is not really the best use of this product, okay? So you better know if you're dynamic loading it, you're staying within the forces that are acceptable for, let's say, 6 mil Tech 12. Okay, we've already proven through braking and thimbles and shackles what the real loading on these things is versus what the book loading is. Okay, so given those standards, you had better be well within those. Okay, and this applies to the harnesses too. If you're going to have a stunt harness, why on earth would you try to countermand or circumvent the manufacturer's recommended procedures that comes with, that piece of paper that you throw out without reading with every harness, okay? I heard something really funny with somebody arguing about their harness and inspection. They're going, I'm not going to use it for flying. I'm just going to use it for jerk backs. It shows an inherent lack of knowledge of what dynamic loading and dynamic forces are. We've already proven on the dyno that a gold tail drop with a superhero ending and a stop will pull 5 times body weight. Okay, that's a dynamic loading. So you're only going to use it for dynamics. Well, 5 times 100 kilos is 500 kilos right there. Okay, so it makes no sense compared to a static weight, which is 100 kilos hanging statically flying in the air. Okay, so these kind of comments really prove to me that these people don't know fuck all about what they're talking about. They just feel butthurt that they're left out and they know better. And it's a real problem because they get away with it. Okay, if people died because of it, it would change this. No one would be jumping up to be in the forefront of this and take the heat for these things, because it is an actual obligation and responsibility to your performer, to the safety of the entire situation, to know when to say no, to know how to get around it, to know when to oversize things, to know when to test, to have actual data in your logbooks for what the system is, and to say my system has this shackle, this carabiner, this line pulling against these anchor points, and you take your lowest common denominator and then you go into your design factor. So if your lowest common denominator is 1.5 tons, okay, at 1.5 tons, if you want to have a design factor of 3 to 1, you're going to be at 500 kilos. Okay, and it goes down very quickly. People think, oh, it's 10 tons. It's not. You have to calculate it. Your rope is only good for 2.5 tons in ideal circumstances, 6 mil Tech 12. Okay, 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons, somewhere in there. And we've shown the disparity between various manufacturers. Marlowe is brittle. It breaks with a very different D to D ratio than Samson breaks. We've shown that both of these break in bad D to D ratios, and we've shown also that they don't break in real life situations exactly as the factory tests them on whatever bollards they use and whatever pull they use. In just a random pull test with a 12-ton hydraulic cylinder, they break at a different number. So reality versus textbook, and then knowing how to apply it. And all of those factors, if you're a rigger, put a giant bullseye on your head. So you better have the answers. So this week, it's just gotten to be really irritating to me to listen to all these people whine on the phone and whine in texts and whine in emails, especially when they're already ignoring the rules in the first place by flying people in harnesses that are out of date and that don't fit the criteria. So what is it you want to do? It's better to plead ignorance, because if you know what you're doing, they can really hang your ass. You would say, no, I'm not going to do it, and that's going to put you at a forefront, which is part of the problem. It puts you against your coordinator who's saying, it's fine. Yeah, well, it's not. But until you kill somebody or until you go to court and you get your ass hung out to dry, it's always fine, okay? So these are the things that really have gotten to me this week, and last week, the week before, because this has just been building up for the last month or so of all these phone calls and shit. And I finally just was fed up. I mean, I had a couple more last week and over the weekend, and I just don't understand it, because you are the one assuming liability, okay? And there's a chain of liability, and it starts with your coordinator. It goes through your head rigger. It goes through you who are hooking them on. Everyone should be checks and balances all along. And there's some basic tenets here. You don't exceed the load limits of the manufacturer's stated use of the materials. You don't use them in a way that's off-label, though we always do. But if you're going to use it off-label, you better have data to support that, or down-rate its load rating sufficiently to allow for an off-label use. I mean, shackles can be cross-loaded. Bow shackles can be cross-loaded. They have Crosby has an actual spec for side loading of bow shackles. So if you're going to side load a bow shackle, then use that number. Okay? If that's your application, and sometimes there are fucked up applications where this is required, then you do it that way. But at least you're staying within the due diligence and the numbers and the way of doing it. You're not just hanging your ass out there saying, it's going to be fine, which is the most ridiculous thing I've heard, because contradicting and going against all known data. And these are big companies. I mean, fucking Crosby can spend millions breaking shit. Samson can spend millions breaking shit. DMM breaks shit. Petzold spends tons breaking shit. These are people who their product line is assuming responsibility. So they want to be damn well sure that they're within specs. So if you aren't at least adhering to that, then it's basically you're saying you know better. And I find it quite humorous, not in a funny ha-ha way, but in just a Dunning-Kruger, you got to be fucking kidding me way. Do you really, most riggers don't want any responsibility in the first place. They just want to go hang a pulley, hang it where you tell me to hang it. They don't design systems. They don't know the math. They just know this is how we do it. Okay, this is how they told me to do it. Well, unless you know the right way and the numbers, then all of that goes out the window. It's just a monkey hanging a pulley, monkey doing a system, okay? And you are putting a big target on your head because you are either, as I said, through inaction or omission, participating in something that is wrong, or if you assume and you want to push and your butt hurt and you think you are the one that should know better, you're hanging yourself out there and painting a really big red bullseye on yourself for contravening all known technical information on a product because you know better. And if you know better, you had really better be able to prove it. Okay? Because in a court of law, it will be gone. Your life will never be the same again. And part of the reason we get away with it in stunts is because it never gets to that point because it gets hushed up, bought off, a slap on the wrist, a little OSHA violation, a little H&S fine of $100,000, and it all just kind of melts away and somebody's fucked for life. But hey, we know better. We're stunt guys. So I had to speak out on this again, and I've touched on this before. It's the assumption of risk, the assumption of liability. So in the back of your mind, you need to know if you're going to be the one who is doing this, you had better dot your I's and cross your T's and know why and how and be able to empirically explain and prove the decisions you made. Especially when they contravene any known manufacturer's rules and regulations. Okay? So with harnesses, that's pretty blatant. They've given a shelf life of how many years you can have them. They've given a force per pick point, period. They've said you need to check them if the dynamic application, which we use a lot of dynamic applications, gets close to that or gets above a certain point. You need to really inspect all of these and notice this and know what you're looking for. So willingly, do you want to be responsible for that? Do you think you have the knowledge? And do you want to assume the responsibility for that? Because in essence, you're assuming the responsibility at the end extrapolation of this for someone's life. Okay? And unless you're damn well sure you know your shit, that seems like a big stretch. Okay? It seems like a big stretch. This isn't just recreational climbing where you go, oh, that's fine, I'm gonna go fucking climb. And that old harness you've had for 12 years that's worn thin on the loop in front and you suddenly fall out of your harness and you kill yourself, well, that's fine, it's you. But we're talking movies and or theater and or live performance. We're talking a completely different, this is not recreational use, okay? If you kill yourself recreationally, nobody cares. If someone dies because you have said it's okay based on whatever erroneous thoughts you have, then it's not okay, okay? So this becomes the issue. And I can't stress it enough, and to see the number of people who are offended and upset and arguing about this topic, especially from a country where nobody follows the rules. I mean, yes, they may get their equipment inspected every 6 months lower. I can do that myself, but I have a third party do it. Why? Because it means I'm not the liable one. I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm not going to go through any corners. I will pay someone to do my equipment, okay? Because it's due diligence. It's me showing that I have gone the extra bit to prove that I'm not trying to say, I'm not using just my expertise. So yeah, you get your Lolar done every 6 months. your equipment's all inspected. Well, what's the big deal about a harness? Why is everyone so uptight about a harness for 50 bucks, 50 quid? It's like it costs more in time than 50 quid to inspect one correctly. And on top of that, you're putting your ass on the line saying it's good to go. Okay? So, is it worth 50 bucks? No. It's a courtesy to your performers. And it's something you should be doing every time you fly them in the harness. But I do it at the beginning of shows. I do it when they're blatantly out of date. It makes no sense because now I'm not going to say I know better than the manufacturer. And it's even funnier because some people's solution to this is, well, fuck it. I'm not going to deal with the best manufacturer. I'm just going to go use this clone copy guy over here. Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. You're not going to use the Porsche that has the rules about oil changes and how you deal with everything. You're going to go with the Fiat Punto over here that has basically no recourse, no real testing, nothing. And in fact, when they've been independently tested, proved to be a far less valid product. But that's your solution to somehow to get back at people for not having your way. It's like a kindergartner stamping their fucking feet. Guys, it's a rule. It costs what it costs. 50 bucks every 6 months, big fucking deal. I mean, this is how you earn your money. This is how you stay alive. And yet everyone argues about it currently and everybody's pissing and moaning. And the fact is, hey, then don't get it inspected. You know, when shit happens, everybody who's been in touch with that, including you as the owner or you as the coordinator or you as the rigger who hooked them on that, will be in the chain of getting fucked in the ass in court because you didn't go by the rules. It doesn't matter. So why do you willingly get your butt hurt by not being included in all this shit? Because it makes no real sense. Okay? So that's just my thoughts today. If you're going to rig, you need to know the right way. You need to know the math, the physics, the forces behind it. You need to justify all of your uses of things. Because in the bottom line, if something does happen, if harnesses are one of the few things that never go bad. I've only seen a few zipper pockets out. I've only seen a few break threads because the human body can only take so much. And it's usually on a limit that's below the harness limit. But I've seen 6 mil break. I've seen people connect shackles to make longer 6 mil runs and have said, hey, that's going to break. And sure as shit, pink, it breaks. You know, things that don't make sense, but nobody wants to pay attention because they all know better. Okay? How about you just know what the realities are? And that's why we test here. That's why we break shit here. That's why we have real world data. Okay? Is because this helps you keep your ass out of a sling. I mean, face it, I don't know many people that want to lose all of their money, all of their possessions, criminally be prosecuted, and everything else because they thought they knew better than whoever manufactured the product and did it wrong. It makes no sense, right? But a lot of people, especially stuntmen, argue that they should be the ones making these choices, which is pretty fucking funny in a lot of ways. It's like, if you want to paint a bullseye in your head, you already are doing it by omission. You're not getting shit inspected. You're not following the rules. You're using out-of-date equipment. So it doesn't matter. You know, I don't care. I don't give a shit. You know, for me and how I operate, it matters. If you want to do that, have fun. You know, they'll see you in court. And you will be the one who lose everything and get criminally prosecuted. Okay? And this is your choice. But people don't see it like that because it's so infrequent that people die or that it actually makes it that far that everybody figures it's just a free pass. You know, they can do whatever they want. So that's just today's rant because of the last weeks and weeks of bullshit and butthurt people and texts and guys, I don't care if you inspect shit or not. You know, I personally don't care. My stuff is inspected. The harnesses I use are in date, inspected, and according to the manufacturer. Okay? Does it cost money? Yes. Does it cost time? Yes. Okay? Does it make a difference? Yes. In the assumption of liability. in the assumption of risk, in the fact that you don't sit and wonder if shit's going to go south, okay? It's layers of worry that go away when you know that everything is correct, okay? So it's just a thought for the day. Like I said, there's no imperative. I really don't care what you do. If you're a stunt guy and you think your 12-year-old harness is fine to fly in, good on you. If you want to find a rigger that will fly you that way, good on you. You're both complicit now. If your coordinator has given the okay to the rigger, it's not your harness, it's theirs, and that's 12 years, 12 years old, and it's out of date, and something happens, you're all in deep shit. You're all in the same canoe paddling fucking up shit river, okay? That's the bottom line. But nobody looks at it like that. They're all, man, it'll be okay. And therein is the huge problem with the system the way it is right now. And like I said, if more people were mortally injured, it would be a huge difference because people wouldn't be lining up to assume the risk and get nailed to the wall for this. They would be like, nah, distancing themselves as much as possible. So anyway, that's today's thought. Just like, get your harnesses inspected. Follow the fucking rules. It's part of rigging. It's part of knowing the system. It's part of the math and calculating stuff. And if you don't know, either learn it or don't do it. It's pretty simple, And to say, oh, I'm only going to use my harness for jerkbacks, which is one of the most vicious dynamic loadings you can put on a harness. You're going to take a ram that produces, let's put it in imperial, that 7 pounds per 1 pound of air, 7 pounds of force per 1 pound of air on a ram, on a 4-inch ram, and they're going to put it at 150 psi. So you're going to have 1,000 pounds of force hitting you from a dead stop. Oh, there's not much dynamic force there, is there? But hey, the harness is out of date, but I'm only going to use it for jerkbacks. It's like, wow, just shows you how clueless these people really are. You'd be far better off to just put a single line in the air and hang from it, and that's next to no load, as opposed to that. But hey, that's what you want to do. You're going to assume the liability, and everyone who touches you or that rig at that situation, if anything goes south, is going to line up to get fucked. Okay? That's how it's going to work. So you have to think about these things, not to mention the actual, and that's just on a legalese sense, not to mention the moral and ethical responsibility you have to your performers to provide a safe and responsible performing environment for them. Funny enough, big companies that do it endlessly like Cirque and big companies that do it like all the time follow all these rules. Yet we are the only ones that find ourselves like, oh, we know better because nobody wants to play by the rules. So, line up, paint a bullseye on your forehead and get fucked. That's your choice, whether it's by omission or whether it's by design because you've stood up and go, oh, I want to be responsible for that. Well, if you're going to be responsible, it means you can't be part responsible. It means you assume the responsibility for everything. Okay, and if it's not your harness, if it's your coordinator's harness, if it's out of it, all that trickle down falls on you. So it's something to think about, kids. And nobody thinks about it. They're just like, oh, I feel left out. It's like the kids on the playground. Fuck that. It's like the reality is, do you want to be responsible for that person's life? Yes or no? Okay, by omission or by actively doing something that's not by the rules. It's your choice. And I personally don't give a rat's ass. You can do whatever you want. But there is a moral and ethical responsibility to the craft and to people, let alone the civil and legal and criminal liability that's attached to all of that. So you got to think about these things instead of just being butthurt that you can't do X, Y, or Z, and I'm not going to do this, and I think that that's silly. It's like, you don't have a leg to stand on, man. The rules are the rules. And once you follow the rules, you know how to either bend them, get around them, use them, or manipulate them to suit your purpose. You can have enough data to say, in this instance, I've proven that this thing works this way. Okay, That's justification. And you have that background. You can say that. But unless you have that, you can't do shit. So you got to really think about these things. And nobody thinks about it that way. They just all want to be part of and get that participation trophy and think that they know better. And it's not how it works, kids. It's the assumption of risk. It's the assumption of liability. And how much are you willing of that to assume? And if you stand up and go, I will assume it. I have inspected and said this is good, and shit happens, guess who they're going to hang? You. Okay? So it's just a thought for all you folks that are like upset about all this. There's the reality of it. So enjoy, and it's just a thought for the day. And take care, folks. Bye-bye.